sunrise to sunset, I can't stop hustling every minute, every second. Can't stop hustling from sunrise to sunset. I can't stop hustling every minute, every second. Can't stop from sunrise to sunset.
What it is, party people. It's Yellow Boy here for Bros, Brews, and Botches on a solo tip for once. My partners in crime have life things, so we still gonna get this show going. This is for AEW Full Gear 2023. What's up, party people? Once again, glad that y'all can make it. So we're gonna talk a little bit about this pay-per-view, which didn't last as long, and to steal some words from Hogs Wars, it did not suck. So before we get going into this, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, comment, because we need those comments, and make sure that you're telling your friends about the Bros, Brews, and Botches. Also, before we get started, just a little update on news about Ronda Rousey. Since we're not doing Shot of Brew today because we're doing this review, Ronda Rousey, for those of you who didn't know, showed up on Ring of Honor on Friday for their tapings for next Thursday. And there's no contract details. She was just there on a handshake agreement as she tag teamed with Marina Shafir against Athena and Billy Stark. So I'm not going to ruin the results of that, but just know that there was a handshake deal. But there's a lot of stuff to cover on this AEW Full Gear show, marred with a bunch of controversy, fan controversy on how the main event went, but not going to get into that right now, but we will eventually get into that. So let's go ahead and get started, y'all. Just make sure that y'all know that I will always and forever do it for you, the people, you people. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Full Gear. We'll start with the 0 hour, their pre show, which was an hour and 30 minutes, give or take, which 30 minutes of it was just a lot of recaps. And then they started with a match. They had three matches within the hour. So the first match that popped up was for the Ring of Honor World Championship, and that was Lethal, the challenger, versus Eddie Kingston. Of course, Jay Lethal came out with Team TNA, which is Sanjay Dutt, um, Karen Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett, and can't think of the big guy's name, but they were all out there, and of course, they played a part in the match as they interfered here and there. Not really a lot to talk about. It was a typical Eddie Kingston match, but within the conclusion, there was a spot where Jay Lethal was reaching for Jeff Jarrett's guitar, and as he reached out, a hand grabbed it, intercepted it. It was Ortiz, who Ortiz and Eddie Kingston had made up on the night before on the Super Show of Collision and Rampage. So Ortiz grabbed the guitar. He proceeded to hit Sanjay Dutt with said guitar, which gave enough distraction for Eddie Kingston to hit his spinning back fist, to hit the 1, 2, 3, and retain his Ring of Honor World Championship. But more on Eddie Kingston later. Of course, Eddie Kingston, as Eddie Kingston does, once he left the ring, he seen the um, pre-show correspondence. Um, Stokely Hathaway, Renee Paquette, and RJ City. And then he cut a promo on the mic, which was filled with some cursing, which is always fun when Eddie Kingston gets on the mic. So the next matchup was a grudge match that was set up on the Collision Rampage Super Show on Friday, which is Claudio Castagnoli versus Buddy Matthews, honoring the House of Black. So, of course, it was a hard hitting match. Both men super jacked, super yoked. Claudio Castagnoli has more strength than what most people would think that he has. The dude hits those uppercuts with precision. Gonna cut to the chase because again, this is the pre-show stuff. Um, Claudio wins with his sharpshooter. At the end of the match, Claudio kind of Ring of Honored it, where he was extending his hand out for a handshake with Buddy Matthews. Buddy Matthews declined to shake his hand and walked out of the ring. So I don't know if there's like some kind of cracks in the armor of House of Black, or if it's going to be something to where as you know there's going to be more with the BCC and House of Black. So well, I know there is in one instance, but we'll get to that here when we get to it. So I guess you would call it the main event of the pre-show was the Guns, Austin and Colton Gunn, challenging for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships against MJF and the partner of his choosing to fill in for Adam Cole, Samoa Joe. So with this match, it was Samoa Joe holding on to his promise because if he tags with MJF, he told MJF that he would want a title shot. So, but he told him he would keep him safe and protected before that title shot, and that's what he did. He tagged himself in on one moment, which um, aggravated MJF, but they started to work on the same page. There was one moment where MJF, instead of doing the kangaroo kick, was going to do a muscle buster, and Joe tagged himself in, which me and Hogs Wars watched this together, and me and Hogs Wars was thinking that Samoa Joe was going to do a kangaroo kick himself, which would have been hilarious to watch Samoa Joe do a kangaroo kick. Then there was some in stereo muscle busters, but in a surprise and shock to the fans, Adam Cole made his way back to the ring. He's on crutches, he's in a boot, and he walked down to the ring, which ultimately it distracted MJF because MJF was surprised to see him and he went to give him a hug. But while he was doing that, Samoa Joe was in the ring taking care of business and he put on the coquina clutch to secure the win, to save the belts. Both he and MJF kind of shook hands after the match. Samoa Joe left the ring. And of course, Adam Cole was outside the ring on crutches, which left MJF in the ring, and he got caught slacking as the Guns beat him down. They hit a chair on his knee, his left knee, quad area, and then they proceeded to Pillmanize his left leg, which stretcher came out, had to take him to a ambulance and carry him to a local medical facility, a hospital. The whole time, Adam Cole was behind him, and as he was getting loaded into the ambulance, MJF pleaded to Adam Cole to make sure they didn't strip him of his title. He told him to promise him that they didn't strip him of his title. And Adam Cole had a worried look on his face. And that took us out from the 0 hour. Again, this controversy from the fans came from maybe this overbooking of the MJF Adam Cole championship deal. Because, yeah, I'll get to that when we get to the main event. But let's just say that social media was not happy with any of this. But it leads us to the main event, or the main show, rather, the main card of Full Gear, which the first match on deck was the Trios match with Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne, the Patriarchy, versus Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allen with Ric Flair on the outside. Um, Christian Cage got a children's choir that were dressed up in matching turtlenecks to sing his entrance theme. Of course, Ric Flair came out with his Ric Flair drip with purple suit on. And Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allen had an entrance together, which they all dressed up black and white. And Sting had his normal face paint on. Darby had his normal face paint on. And then Adam Copeland had face paint similar to Darby Allen's, but the opposite side of his face. So it looked really cool. It was a great aesthetic. Thing to point out in this match is while they teased it, Edge, or Adam Copeland rather, Adam Copeland and Christian never touched each other. They teased it during the match, but they never actually fought each other in the match, which I think they're trying to save that for a bigger pay per view in order to kind of get more views. So there was that. Darby did Darby things. Darby ended up receiving a choke slam from Luchasaurus on the apron that just looked just wicked. Like they did mention on commentary that Darby Allen is going to be on sabbatical for a little while because he's going to go and climb Mount Everest, which is something that he said he was going to do. Whatever. I mean, if you want to climb a mountain, go climb a mountain, dude. Like, just don't jump off of it. Like, I don't know. But he will be going on sabbatical for that. The conclusion of the match comes down to Christian grabbing his TNT championship to hit Adam Copeland with, but he misses and hits Luchasaurus instead. And of course, all the baby faces capitalize because Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus is left by themselves as Christian Cage does the cowardly thing. He's getting chased by um, Adam Copeland and he runs out the ring. Also, let me back up. There was a spot with Ric Flair and Christian that didn't get a DQ as Ric Flair looked like he was going to punch Christian, pulled back, then Christian pushed Ric Flair. Then Ric Flair hit him with one of his right hands and then hit him with a chop, which gave Christian the green light to hit Ric Flair with a low blow to put him out. So don't know how that wasn't a DQ, but whatever. But like I said, the conclusion, Christian ran away from Adam Copeland. So that's probably going to carry on as far as their match. The good guys win. Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allen. They get the win. Sting continues on. Remember, Sting's last match will be Revolution 2024. Don't know who that's going to be up against, and we don't even know if like Ric Flair is going to do a swerve on him or not. Um, but it may just very well be Ric Flair versus Darby Allen, so Sting can put Darby Allen over on his way out. Who knows? Um, which leads to a segment with Tony Schiavone at the top of the ramp. He's up there with referee Bryce Remsburg, who they are saying that MJF is not going to be able to perform and that they will have to cancel the match. Then Jay White comes out with the Triple B, the Bang Bang Championship, which is also the uh, what is it? The Big Burberry Championship, Big Burberry belt, Triple B, Big Burberry belt, which of course, like I said, Jay White calls the Bang Bang belt. But right before they announced that Jay White will be the new champion, he's interrupted by Adam Cole, who comes out and says he had it approved by Tony Khan to let him sub in for MJF to defend the AEW World Championship in the main event. Again, social media went ablaze, eyes burned out. It looked like Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, where my man's face melted off. That's how everyone's timeline looked as far as this whole deal with Adam Cole, MJF, and Jay White. So yeah, Adam Cole with crutches and a boot in the main event, but we'll get to that. So the next match on the card is the AEW International Championship with Orange Cassidy versus John Moxley. And I'm sure if you didn't have on your bingo cards that John Moxley was going to bleed, you must not be watching AEW because, of course, that man bled. Like you thought this was going to be, but it was interesting. So we know that Orange Cassidy won the belt from Ray Phoenix, which Ray Phoenix wasn't supposed to have the belt. John Moxley was, but since John Moxley had the concussion, they called an audible. Ray Phoenix got the belt, but since Ray Phoenix was also injured and had visa issues, they ended up putting that belt and hot potato in it to Orange Cassidy. So a lot of people felt like this was the match for John Moxley to win that belt back and go back on course for what they originally planned. So, with that being said, and with the promo the previous night with John Moxley saying that he was going to crush Orange Cassidy into dust, it was what you would think John Moxley would do to Orange Cassidy. Like he was eating all of Orange Cassidy's best moves and just kind of New Japanning it, and just kind of strong styling and just taking whatever Orange Cassidy would give him, and he would just talk stuff back to him, telling him to give him some more, that type of deal. And but in the conclusion, because there was one part of the match where uh, Orange Cassidy was trying to grab John Moxley, and he was holding on to the turnbuckle, which exposed the turnbuckle. So we knew that was going to be part of the finish. So Orange Cassidy had to hit six different orange punches because every time he hit an orange punch, John Moxley would stand back up. I mean, he was on roller skates and spaghetti legs, but he would stand back up after get hit with the orange punch. Then, then it was there was there was moments where it looked like John Moxley would get him within that finish, but Orange Cassidy hit the beach break. Well, before he hit the beach break, he threw him into the corner, and of course, already bloody, already, messed up. John Moxley hits the corner. He gets another orange punch, beach break. You have a retention with the international championship with Orange Cassidy. So wondering where they're going to go with Orange Cassidy from here, if not extending the feud between him and John Moxley. So moving on, there was a vignette with Mark Briscoe, as Mark Briscoe has his name entered into the Continental Classic, which is AEW's version of the G1 from New Japan. So they're going to have that starting on Wednesday's Dynamite. That tournament will start. I think they said I can't remember how many competitors. I want to say like 8 to 10 competitors, but I cannot really remember how many they have. They've only announced a few of those, so I'm only sure that they're going to announce the rest of the competitors as this week continues and as it approaches Wednesday night's Dynamite. So, next match on the card, AEW Women's Championship with Timeless Tony Storm versus Hikaru Shida, the champion. I agree with Sean Ross Sapp on his post show, or it wasn't Sean Ross Sapp. It was Fightful, but it was Alex Pulowski, where he said they're doing Karu Shida dirty because she's a three-time champ, but the way that they got the belt off of her, she just doesn't hold the belt long. Um, Timeless Tony Storm. I mean, it's a gimmick that's over. The crowd enjoys it. The black and white gimmick. She has Dr. Luther, or now known as Luther, come out with her. Um, and she had the script. If you watched Collision on Friday, you watched her with the script, and it legit has things written on it to begin the match. But for this match, she went off books, off script for this match and tore the script away um, to fight Hikaru Shida. And Hikaru Shida started the match out by chopping the mess out of Tony Storm's boobies. Like she was just chopping her in the chest. At one point, ended up taking down the strap of Timeless Tony Storm a little bit so she could get to the chest a little bit more, and was chopping her and giving her the machine gun chops in the corner. Um, then, of course, Tony Storm reciprocated by chopping her in the boob, or a titty punch, as she would call it, titty slap, titty slap. So, yeah, this match went on. And so, again, the timelines on social media went ablaze as the finish. So, you know how Tony Storm likes to put stuff in her bum. So, she grabbed a metal tray that was being carried by Luther, and she put the metal tray in her backside, in her trunks. But the tray kind of slid out as she was doing other moves, and you could clearly see it hanging out from the back of her trunks. But yo, I see you, OHB. So it was hanging out the back of her trunks, which clearly in the light of, or excuse me, line of sight of the referee, which which was Aubrey. Ref Aubrey was out there, and you could tell, you could see it, but for kayfabe purposes, she went ahead and hit the hip attack on Hikaru Shida with the metal plate or metal tray in her backside, uh, to get the 1, 2, 3. Oh, followed by Storm Zero, that short pile driver that she does. Storm Zero to get the 1, 2, 3. She is now the new AEW Women's Champion. Mariah May, the newly signed Mariah May, came out to the ring, brought Tony Storm flowers. People hear that people are saying that it's more of what a Mickey James, Trish Stratus deal. It's not. It's an old movie. I cannot remember the movie, but RJ City is helping write this, so you know it's got something to do with old movies and stuff, because that's what RJ City is into. So it's more of that than it is the Trish Stratus story. So anyway, Mariah May came out, brought flowers. Uh, Luther grabbed Tony Storm from the apron and carried her halfway up the ramp, and she pulls the tray from out her back pocket, and Luther takes it and pockets it into his coat so that no one sees that she cheated for that. So new AEW Women's Champion Tony Storm. Don't know who's going to be next up on the plate for Tony Storm, but hopefully it gives the women more matches on Dynamite instead of the one match this past Wednesday. They had, instead of the 8:30, or excuse me, 9:30 slot, they had the 8:30 slot for the women this week, but with only one match. And they have a lot of women, so I hope that this brings more women's matches on those main shows, um, as they do on Ring of Honor, because Ring of Honor has a lot of women's matches on it. They may not have a lot of time on Ring of Honor, but they do have a lot of women's matches. So I hope that continues on AEW television. But next up, there was a backstage segment. Renee Paquette was interviewing Eddie Kingston after his win on the 0 Hour, and Eddie Kingston announced that he's in the Continental Classic as well. But as a twist, he said that he was going to, every match that he's in the Continental Classic tournament, he is going to put up his, not only his Ring of Honor World Championship, but he's also going to put up his New Japan uh, Strong Championship as well, so that in the end, whoever wins this tournament will become a Triple Crown champion, because they're going to also have a Continental Championship on the line for this. So that's yet another belt. That's so many belts. Um, and y'all, I forgot to mention during the Orange Cassidy. Uh, oh, I haven't even got to it yet, or have I? Yeah, the Orange Cassidy match. I haven't gotten to it. I didn't say it or whatnot, but with the Orange Cassidy match, they did tease a little bit of BCC versus Hook, because Hook came out with Orange Cassidy, and as the BCC were leaving the ring with John Moxley, Yuta got into it with Hook. So there may be a future FTW championship match right there between Yuta and Hook. So forgot to mention that, but I wanted to throw that in. So next, after the Eddie Kingston announcement for the Continental Classic, you got the AEW Tag Team Championship four-way, which was also a ladder match, which the participants were Kings of the Black Throne, which honoring the House of Black was Brody King and Malachi Black, FTR, Cash Wheeler, Dax Harwood, not Hardwood, as it was on the promotion that they did earlier this week on Wednesday, which Dax the Axe, or Dax Harwood, said on X that moving forward, if it makes it easier for production to just call him Dax the Axe instead of Hardwood. Um, and I'm looking at chat. The Hook brings you back. I ain't telling you no lie. We want you to come back too. So make sure you're following all those links. Hook. So also involved in this match was the LFI, La Facción Ingobernables, which is so hard for Tony Schiavone to say in his country accent. He cannot say Ingobernables. Uh, but that's Rouge and El Dralistico. They were in the match, and then also, of course, the tag team champions Ricky Starks and Big Bill, not to be confused with any other Big Bills that you know. Um, so it's what you thought with a ladder match. I thought that this was going to be my match of the night. It ended up not being, even with all the spots that were in this match, from the code reds and power bombs and choke slams onto ladders, from a moment where um, Brody King did a gonzo bomb from the second rope on the outside to a ladder being draped across the apron and the security railing on the outside, which the ladder did not give, to Cash Wheeler doing a splash onto said ladder that was set up onto Brody King, uh, did not give way. Um, you had Dralistico showing off in the match, doing things that Dralistico can do. The oh, I can't think of the name. He did dives on the outside of the ring, which everyone did their dives, including Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks wasn't he did it smart. He was not in the match a lot. He wasn't getting a lot of offense on him. So that way he could kind of sneak in, which is what he did in the finish of the match. He was climbing the ladder and trying to get up there, and um, Big Bill was assisting him to get up that ladder. Eventually, they went ahead and grabbed their belts, so they're retaining the tag team championships. I kind of want to see what Ricky Starks can do by himself. I would have rather seen Big Bill do his tag teaming with Brian Cage, because that team up looked awesome when they had them as a tag team. But they'll continue on, I think, a lot more of collision shows, Ricky Starks and Big Bill. So I don't know who's going to be up next, but depending on what happened later on in the match, they would know who one of their contenders would be, whether it be the Golden Jets or the Young Bucks, as the Young Bucks currently held the right to challenge Ricky Starks and Big Bill for those championships. But we'll find out what happens later. Next match on the card, riding through this. And I want to say that this pay per view, though it was about 4.5 hours, it didn't feel like it. It kind of went really fast. So we kind of blew through the match, and it didn't hurt that the LA crowd that was there were really lit for the entire show. There were points in the match where they kind of had a lull because of all the action that was going on. It picked back up really well, and I think that kind of did well for the overall presentation of the show, for them to just kind of have that energy in there. Um, but after the ladder match, there was the TBS championship match. It was a triple threat with Julia Hart, Sky Blue, and Chris Statlander. Julia Hart dressed in red, honoring the House of Black. You had Sky Blue, who had different presentation to her, where she normally wears a ball cap and shorts and stuff. She had on the ball cap at the entrance ramp. She took it off, stomped on it, and presented herself with a black crown. She was, of course, dressed in blue. And then Chris Fatlander came out dressed in purple, which she was dressed as the Cobras from the movie Dodgeball with Ben Stiller. She was dressed as them coming out. She was dressed up like that. So, which was interesting. Red and blue makes purple. So there was that dynamic. But as I've heard from reports, AEW was very high on Julia Hart, so they're going to try to push her more. Um, both Julia Hart has improved a lot since the days of AEW Dark in the pandemic times. Sky Blue continues to impress, and I feel very bad for Chris Statlander, as her championship run was very stale. Once she won it off of Jade Cargill, it just kind of became stale because there wasn't really anybody there to kind of meet her. But again, like I said, they're very high on Julia Hart. She's been doing excellent work. Her character work has been great with what she has right now. Don't know what they're doing with Sky Blue, but within this match, it was a moment where Julia Hart and Sky Blue seemed like they were teaming up to team up against Chris Statlander. Because if you didn't know, Julia Hart sprayed the mist in Sky Blue's eyes a couple of months back, and we've seen this change in Sky Blue, which is culminating to what we had last night. Unfortunately, that collaboration didn't last, and Julia Hart attacked Sky Blue. Um, there was a really dope, to me, it was a really dope code blue, which is a code red, but it's done by Sky Blue, if you're following, which it looked like onto Chris Statlander, where it looked like Chris Statlander was about to do a power bomb on Sky Blue off the ropes, and Sky Blue floated over into the code blue, which looks better than what she's trying to do with her regular code blue. Because if you watch Wednesday Night Dynamite, she kind of botched it a little bit with Red Velvet and slid off the side of how she kind of performs that move. This one looked a whole lot better. But our finish came from Chris Statlander getting Sky Blue in her Saturday Night Fever finally, and then going for the pin. But Julia Hart slid in with a clothesline, a sliding clothesline, knocking Chris Statlander off the pin. She sneaks in, gets the pin on Sky Blue. 1, 2, 3. We have a new TBS champion in Julia Hart. So that's two championships changing hand, and it was both the women's championships. So again, I hope that this means that we'll see more women on Dynamite and Collision for sure. Then after that came the announcement of the surprise or the important signing, which they hyped up earlier this week, said it was someone that the AEW fans knew, appreciated, respected, um, and kind of confirming what a lot of the news outlets were saying. Will Ospreay is now AEW. I mean, he's been on AEW television for months now, doing several different feuds or storylines. So now it's confirmed that he is all elite. However, he came out to the ring, confirmed the announcement, signed the paperwork, but then told in his own way, you know, he a lot of bruvs, bruv, listen, bruv, he was telling the live audience that he wouldn't be starting right away as he has prior commitments to New Japan. So from Fightful, they said that the contract wasn't signed until yesterday evening or afternoon rather. So it was something that was done very late in the day, and he did have some talks with WWE and Impact as he been shown on Impact, and WWE wanted to get him for themselves, but ultimately he signs with AEW. This means that he can still live in the UK, um, and he can still do some of his storylines or some shows with and work with New Japan if he so chooses to. So he said that he would be starting his road to Revolution after his engagement. So it looks like sometime maybe in February that we'll see Will Ospreay start making his way on AEW television. So there was that. Moving next, my favorite match of the night. And listen, I know that it may not be for some of you, but then again, it may be for if you're of a certain vintage, you may like this type of match. It was in my taste, but again, I think it's match of the night. I think it is a match of the year candidate, which was the Texas death match between Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. And if you don't know the backstory, like it all kind of started with Swerve making it, cutting a promo on Hangman saying that, you know, he just kind of squandered the position that he was in and he wanted his spot. And if anybody remembers old WCW, in my mind, I'm hearing that's not my spot, not a dog name spot, not a liver spot, but he wanted Hangman spot because he said he was going to be the first black AEW champion, which the way that they have been building Swerve, I can see it. I think if we use the word squandered, I think WWE really wet the bed, so to speak, wet the bed on Swerve Strickland over in WWE because yeah, the dude's on fire. Dude works, he puts his all into it. So, anywho, this match was sick, y'all. It was brutal. It was bloody. It was disgusting. It was over the top, but it also fit because after the promo stuff with Hangman and Swerve, Swerve a couple of weeks ago entered Hangman's home and was talking to his baby boy and gave him he gave him a t-shirt. Come on, y'all. I mean, that's generous. He gave him a shirt. Them shirts are not cheap on, pro wrestling tees and AEW shop. Like, come on. Like, he gave the baby a shirt. But anyway, which pissed off Hangman. And then on Wednesday, Hangman cut a just scathing promo that didn't allow Swerve to say anything. And it was very hilarious because he said that after he's going to beat Swerve, he's going to beat up Prince Nana because Prince Nana is just uh, uh, welching off of him and using his name and stuff so that he can go to the parking lot after the show and buy weed from a high schooler. So he said after he's gonna beat Swerve, he was gonna beat up Nana and steal his weed, which got chants from the crowd that said "steal your weed." So it kind of really set the platform for yesterday's Texas death match. It was kind of apropos to have a death match for everything because it got really personal. So yeah, I think Logan Paul is the poor man's Adam Page. Says the chat. As Hog Floor says, he is the poor man's Adam Page. But y'all, when I say the match started off just gross, like Hangman had a stapler and he proceeded to staple actual staples into Swerve's chest, head. He stapled a piece of paper onto Swerve's face. Then he stapled his kid's drawing to Swerve's jaw. And then at one point, like there was blood just pouring from Swerve, like just pouring, like Gatorade. And I'll say Gatorade for a certain reason. But there was a moment also after Swerve powered up that he started hitting staples into his own chest and laughing. Like the dude is sick, but he used to wrestle for CZW. So any of y'all who know about CZW, y'all should know what CCW is about.
Jesus.
So there was a moment, and it's probably our thumbnail where Hangman Adam Page is on the ground and literally takes this pouring of blood from Swerve's head and puts it into his own mouth. And after he puts it in his own mouth, he then stands up and proceeds to do the Triple H spray like it's water. And of course, he got the "you sick, you know what" chants from the crowd. Like Hangman is a vampire now, all of a sudden. But there were uses of barbed wire. There was a barbed wire uh, chair, had barbed wire around it that just looked brutal. There was one point where Swerve used that barbed wire chair on Hangman on the top rope, and the barbed wire actually got stuck on or excuse me, Hangman's head, and it was pulling skin and hair off of his head on the top rope as the chair was falling to the ground. It looked sick. Um, there was glass used. Um, y'all, there's no words that I can say to describe how this match was. I just say if you have a chance, go watch this match. If you're squeamish, don't go watch this match. But if you're into hardcore matches, it's a death match. And if you watch any death matches, you know it gets gory. And this match does. But Brian Cage gets involved but Hangman Adam Page puts barbed wire around his neck and hits him with the clothesline, sending him outside. Prince Nana tries to get involved, and of course he does his dance and stuff, trying to keep Adam Page from hitting him. Page hits him with a dead eye through a table that was set up on the outside, putting him out. But then this gave Swerve the chance to capitalize as Swerve puts some chains, steel chains, around Hangman's neck and hangs him from the outside. They're sitting on the outside, and he throws the chain around the turnbuckle and the post and hangs Hangman, kind of similar to how Hangman hung John Moxley in their match. So this was enough to get Hangman to pass out, not beat the 10 count. Your winner is Swerve, and Swerve is just like he's on another level in this in AEW. I want to see Swerve actually become a world champion, and hopefully it will by sometime next year once they get done with all the MJF, Adam Cole, and Bullet Club stuff and Kingdom stuff. Then I hope that Swerve can become the first Black world champion in AEW. Um, yes, I agree. OHB, it was like that Boss Man Gangrel spot spots where I absolutely laughed because I'm a sicko myself. And yes, I agree, OHB, that Swerve does deserve it because he's been putting in work. Like, if y'all look at Swerve from where he was at in WWE to where he's at right now, I'm not going to say that next comment, OHB, but if you look at Swerve where he was at in WWE, the man's putting on weight. He's getting more crisp with his moves. I watched him in MLW, and I didn't get a chance to see him in CZW, but he brought some of those CZW traits out in this match. Great match. Y'all go check it out. Anyway, next up is tag team match Golden Jets, which is Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks. And the stipulation on this is that if the Golden Jets win, they will receive the Young Bucks championship contendership for the tag titles. But if the Bucks win, the Golden Jets would disband and not be a tag team anymore because of this jealousy thing that the Young Bucks have with Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, which in one aspect you kind of understand it because Chris Jericho was one of their biggest adversaries. So how can Kenny Omega tag team with them? But in the same route, it's Kenny Omega, Kenny by God Omega. He can do what he wants. So the match starts out where the Bucks are a little bit babyface and they're, fist bumping with Kenny Omega, but they're trying to take out Chris Jericho. Matches that take out Chris Jericho's right arm so he couldn't do the Judas effect. There was one point of the match where Mac Jackson did a Judas effect of his own. Um, then it got to the point where the frustration set in for the Bucks and they began to become more heelish. And the Bucks ended up low blowing both Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega, but it didn't win them the match. What ended up happening was at one point Matt Jackson did the one winged angel on Kenny Omega for a 2 count because it's Kenny by God Omega and he's gonna kick out of his own move. But then for the finish, like Chris Jericho did a Judas effect with his left arm, and then of course Kenny Omega hits a one wing angel on Nick Jackson for the win. Was it ineffective? It was kind of effective for that Judas effect left-handed or left arm. But 1, 2, 3, the Golden Jets get the win, which means they can go on and challenge for the AEW Tag Team Championships with Ricky Starks and Big Bill. But the bigger thing at the end of this match was that both Jackson brothers threw tantrums on the outside of the ring, which kind of fits in with the CM Punk statement that he was effing tired and that he works with children, and the Bucks were playing up that they were children as they threw tantrums on the outside of the ring. So this is probably going to continue on as far as this this feud between them. The Bucks are now fully healed. There was a spot in the match that it should be noted where Kenny Omega had a choice to make. There was Chris Jericho on one side of the ropes, on the second rope hanging off, and Nick Jackson on the other side hanging off. And he went to do his V trigger. He was pointing, and the crowd was cheering. And he pointed at Chris Jericho, but then he kind of swerved, no pun intended, swerved and hit Matt Jackson with a V trigger. So at some point, Kenny Omega will go back heel, I think, and join the Bucks once again. But we'll see how this all goes. Uh, Chris Jericho, whatever. He's moving slower, so the match, the crowd wasn't into this match at first, but then as they kind of continued the match on, the fans kind of got into it and made a difference. So that leads us to the AEW Championship match, the main event, which on the card it said Adam Cole, baby, versus Jay White. So, of course, Adam Cole on crutches, in a boot, limps down to the ring. Jay White comes out with the guns. He's very confident because he's got a one-leg man. He at one point before the bell rang, he laid down on the ground. He hopped on one leg, telling Adam Cole he was going to beat him up on one leg. And then you hear the sound of sirens in the background, and it's MJF driving up in the ambulance. So he kind of he kind of drove up. What's this all about? He drove up in the ambulance, probably stolen, and he's got heavily taped left thigh, knee area, and that's kind of where it leads to the match. He gets down to the ring. Of course, he's got all kinds of AEW officials telling him not to go to the ring, not to do the match. And he's telling Adam Cole that he's going to do the match. I find it interesting that the commentary, they said that having Adam Cole at ringside for MJF was a distraction. It was hurting him being there because Adam Cole was telling MJF to do things, like do a dive. And of course, he's playing up this left leg being injured. Why do a dive when your left leg is injured? You can't really use it. And of course, MJF was selling it very well. Anytime he would run, sometimes being Irish whipped into a corner, he just kind of fall out. And, Jay White's offense was directed straight towards that left leg, doing dragging whips on the ropes, dragging whips on the ground, single leg whips, all the kind of moves that he even put a figure four on at one point. And at that moment, putting in the figure four, Adam Cole had a towel in his hand and it looked like he was going to throw in the towel. And of course, MJF powered out of it, turned it over. So there was two spots in the match where Adam Cole kind of was a detriment to MJF. He grabbed his Ring of Honor tag belt that he had wore down to the ring, and he was going to give it to MJF. But of course, he's on crutches, and so as he's hobbling over to tell MJF to grab the belt, Jay White comes over, intercepts it, snags it out of Adam Cole's hand, and hits MJF with it. You know, 1-2 kick out. Then there was a ref bump. You knew that there was going to be a ref bump because Aubrey wasn't the ref for this match, and it was Bryce Remsburg. So as he is a guy in the situation, he was going to get a ref bump. So Adam Cole pulls out of his pocket the dynamite diamond ring of MJF, and kind of like how Santos Escobar did the brass knuckles at um, the last pay per view for WWE, Adam Cole sets it on the ring, but of course, MJF wasn't able to get to it. Jay White intercepts it, but then again, another penis punch to Jay White from MJF, and he confiscates the diamond ring, the dynamite diamond ring. Blocks. I mean, he did a really good sell job and punch with this ring to Jay White. Of course, the referee wakes up around this time. MJF retains. Now, full stop. I don't have a problem. And Hogs Wars didn't have a problem with the setup of this match, but we do realize that it could be overbooked from, the 0 hour having Samoa Joe take the place of Adam Cole, to the leg injury spot, to having Adam Cole taking the place of MJF, and then having MJF come down with uh ambulance a la Attitude Era, and all the shenanigans that went on with this match. It was a 30-minute match. Like, this match started at like 10:15, or excuse me, yeah, around 10:15, 11:15, depending on where you live, 11:15 Eastern time, and it went 30 minutes. I was heavily entertained, but social media went ablaze. So we understand that it could be overbooked, but it may kind of correct itself as the story goes. Like, I'm willing to give AEW a little bit of leeway sometimes, because they've been better at long-term storytelling, not long-term booking, but just long-term storytelling. Because WWE does a good job with long-term booking, because they can book something. We see how they're booking Roman Reigns, and at this point, the bloodline stuff is stale. But the storytelling with AEW has been a little bit, I'm not saying by much, but I'm just saying it has been a little bit better, as history would say. So I'm willing to give them some leeway, but I can understand why people can are getting upset by it. But because there's a lot of plot holes with that. Anywho, MJF retains. He embraces Adam Cole. They hug. Uh, they have their moment or whatnot. There was no sign of the devil that they've been going with. So a lot of people are trying to put two and two together and say, well, we didn't have uh, a sighting of the devil because the devil was ringside, Adam Cole. So could be. We know that Adam Cole's, I think they said 9 months he's going to be out. And what we got, OHB explanation goes a long way with stuff, and fans, especially the ICW, will poop on it if it doesn't make sense. Yeah, the internet community, wrestling community will poop on anything. And I told Hogs Wars last night, like, it kind of gives some truth to what Vince McMahon used to say all the time. Vince McMahon used to just say that we, as the people, the fans, we don't know what we want. He knows what we want, and that's why he books things the way that he wants. And like, the IWC are definitely showing that, because they'll do it one way one time, then they'll switch it up. Complaints either way. So, just sit back, watch wrestling, enjoy. You may have things that you don't like, that's fine. You may have things that you really enjoy, that's fine too. It's all objective. Like, just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. Anyway, MJF wins. There was no funny business after the bell, which I thought that they would have something, because they showed them walking up the ramp, MJF and Adam Cole, and I thought it was going to be a NXT Black and Gold deal where, with DIY, where Tommaso Ciampa turned on Johnny Gargano, hit him with the crutch, but that didn't happen. They just kind of shared a moment at the top of the ramp, and the show went off air. So that was AEW Full Gear 2023. Um, it was a show. I liked it. Like I said, if I had to score it, not in a Meltzer type of deal, but if I had to score it out of 100%, I would give it like an 89. Um, it wasn't like the greatest of shows, but they had so much different things going on, uh, that it was something for everybody. But OHB said, whether you're a fan of the AEW, ROH, et cetera, it's a fun time as a fan. There's way more games in town. Just watch it. You have all kinds of choices at this point. If you don't like one thing, there's so much out there. Like, you look at it 30 years ago, there was only like a handful of choices, and then your indie promotions that were out there that not a lot of people had access to. Now, everybody is, whether it's streaming platforms, YouTube, as you're on right now, or just on national television, you have the opportunity to watch whatever wrestling that you want to. Take advantage of it. And it makes it just better for the wrestling. community, or excuse me, wrestling as a whole, professional wrestling as a whole is just better because people are competing to get your dollars and your eyes. So as long as there's multiple wrestling organizations, promotions out there, then you know there's opportunity for more wrestling that you may like to be out there. So anyway, guys, uh, that's my soapbox. More women like women's wrestling, enjoy women's wrestling as well. Help the women, get them more time, whether it's any promotion. Again, personal opinion: the best women's division is in Impact slash TNA right now with their knockouts division. But for all wrestling, let's buy the merch of your favorite wrestler, help them, watch the show that you love, but be open to other shows, that kind of deal. But whew, a lot. So first off, I want to thank you guys for joining in. For those of you who are watching on catch up, thank you for watching this on the replay. Make sure once again, forever and always, to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you're commenting. Please make sure you're going and following the channel and following us on all social media platforms, which description is in the chat, but it also be in the description below. We have a link tree that gives you all that stuff. Go follow and watch OHB, who's been in the chat. He has his Mad Dog Mondays on Mondays, Sips on Thursdays. This will be preempted this week because it is a holiday week. Thanksgiving is on Thursday here in the United States. So for those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving, please enjoy your families. Be thankful for professional wrestling. Be thankful for the ones that you love. Eat a ton of food. Go into a food coma. Get that itis. Um, for those of you who are having a regular week, hope that you have a great rest of your week. Um, Next weekend, not guaranteeing that there'll be a shot of brew because of the fact that, again, holiday week. So I'll be with family just as everybody else here in the States will be. So just kind of look out on our social media to see what we're doing. Um, OHB in the chat says that he really needs y'all to tell him what you want him to do on those reviews. You can always DM him. His information is in the link tree as well. And tell him if you tried it yourself. That way he gets that feedback. It's not a one-way thing. He's not just doing his, beer reviews just for himself. He's doing it for you guys. So he wants to see how you guys, if you've drunk anything that he has, what you think about it. So don't think that his opinion is the gospel. It's just his opinion, but give him information, comment, reach out to him on social media, let him know what you want to see him try out. And if he's got access to it, he will try it out. So please do that. Support Hogs Wars with us. OHB said it probably is the gospel. He is a pro. Well, he is the Appalachian aristocrat. He is the Appalachian apostle. Um, he is the Appalachian assassin. He is, I can't think of anything else right now. He is all those things. So he's tried a lot of alcoholic beverages. He may know a little something about that. So make sure y'all go and checking him out. Go also and holler at and support Hogs Wars, who does the Twitch streams. Um, he does them Mondays and Sundays, Sundays and Mondays. I believe he said that's what he does. I'm not sure if he's going to do that tonight. And since again we're on a holiday schedule, I'm not sure what he may do this week. But please make sure if you're following us on Twitch to turn on those notifications so that you know when he's going to be playing some games on there and give him comments on things you want him to play. I think I've plugged everything. I think that's it for AEW Full Gear. Next weekend is WWE Survivor Series. Not sure if we're going to do a review show on that either. Again, just make sure you're checking our social media just to make sure if we do something so that you see when we go live. Other than that, I've been Yellow Boy. In the chat has been OHB over here, boy. And for our brother who's on the road right now, Hogs Wars, this is Bros, Brews, and Botches, and this has been the AEW Full Gear 2023 review. And until next time, as always, we love you and we out. Peace, y'all.
From sunrise to sunset, I can't stop hustling.